Right, we've come out for a little ride today to Oliver's Mount, which is a motorcycle road racing circuit in Scarborough in Yorkshire, near where I live. 15 minutes drive for me. So I thought I'd come and do a little lap around Oliver's Mount whilst I'm here. Gonna see my friend John, who's got the Astra AAA, and have a little chat with him. I'm hoping it's not going to rain. Some dark clouds, but let's hope it doesn't rain. But again, we brought the last coupe here, put some photos a few years ago. So we're back to pay homage and test out this nice smooth tarmac. So just as a matter of fact, whilst we're here, I did actually race at Oliver's Mount in the hill climb competitions. And here I am on my little 650 going across the start line in the wet, and at the very next corner I managed to light up the rear and stuff it into the grass bank, and we spent the rest of the day trying to fix it up, and we managed to get it fixed by the end of the day, and we got ran up the hill, got a third place timing, so thankfully all was not lost, and we got some good results. But yeah, one place in my heart for Oliver's Mount for various reasons, and even the great Guy Martin, I managed to watch him race around here as well. Everyone's favourite northerner. Is he northern from Lincolnshire? Anyway, so yeah, we're great times here at Oliver's Mount. Well, John's just gone for a little drive in my coupe, so I thought we'd admire his 888 for a moment. Hope he doesn't mind. Gorgeous thing, this. So today is the day, Sunday, when we're dropping the car off at the body shop. I'm just waiting for Marcus to turn up, and then we'll leave it in his capable hands. I feel bad because I've not even had a chance to give it a wash or anything, but I'm sure I'll manage anyway. But yeah, it's going to be 2 weeks of pining for the car to come back, but I'm sure it'll all be worth it. It should come back looking lovely. Our old engine. If you remember, if you've been watching all along, you'll remember that this was the original engine in the car, and it had had a chain guide bolt snapped, and the chain had been rattling around. The main timing chain had been rattling around, and you could kind of tell that there were some bits coming off that chain. We spotted in the sump that there were fragments of metal, which probably came from the chain and maybe anything that it was hitting. So for a bit of fun, something to do while the car is away, is we're going to dismantle this. As you can see, I've got this cradle, the crank cradle, whatever you call it, section is loose, and I'm just going to lift that off and we'll have a look to see if any signs of damage. Okay, now I will confess that I am not much of an engine guy. I've never had an engine apart this far. I've never rebuilt an engine. But it was fairly obvious to even my eye that when I took this apart that there had been some fairly nasty stuff going on in here. If we look across so these are the bearings basically between the crankshaft and the engine block, and I don't know if this face is supposed to be perfectly smooth. I think it maybe should. Probably shouldn't be any grooves in this area, but as you can see, this one is probably the best face, and it's got this groove all the way down the middle. If we look along, this one's got multiple grooves, even more multiple grooves, and all the way at the end. So this had all those fragments of metal, so it looks like the oil has a chance to come through. Oh, this camera's a bit hard to point at things. So this is the crankshaft here, and the oil looks to come through those holes. to lubricate those bearings, and as it's done that with all those fragments in, it's worn those grooves into the bearings. And it'd be interesting to try and measure this crankshaft to see whether it's still in spec or whether it's been worn down so far out of spec. I think it probably has, and again, when we take this out, the bearing seats underneath this will probably have those same grooves again. You can already see down there there's a notch, whereas these have smaller notches or no notches. So it's obviously been cycling through there all those fragments of metal and causing damage, probably irreparable damage really to these cranks. I imagine once those have shrunk to a certain size or worn to a certain size, then bad things will happen. Don't know. Anyway, so I'm going to try undoing these, tapping them down just to release those clamps, take the caps off, and then we should be able to lift the crankshaft out. So just to make the point even more emphasised, when we took the cap off this piston rod, you can see sat in the bottom of the bearing 2 shards of metal sat on that hole where the oil's supposed to be flowing, so yeah, fairly obvious really. Now with the crankshaft out of the way, you can see how the oil gets down to those bearings. There's a slot in those bearing faces, and some kind of oil gallery comes down and feeds these, and again the wear signs are there as well. But yeah, interesting to see how the oil is fed down. Don't know if I can pop out one of these thingy-majigs. I'll have a go in a sec. The pistons are ready to just fall out the bottom, it seems. I don't know which way do you push them out, or do you just pull them out? Looks like you got to push them out, yeah, because it won't clear these faces. You can see what a newbie I am, but hey, I'm having a look, I'm having a go, see how it all works. That's the point, innit? Educate oneself about all these things. Never mind reading it in a book. Get eyes on, get hands on, sort it out yourself. Right, this one's just a note to myself when I come back and watch this video in a few years, when I'm rebuilding another one of these engines. This bearing has a flange around the sides with the notches on it. All the others don't. And that matches up to this one in here. It's got flanges on the side. I have no idea why, but it's interesting to note. So it's the second one in from the chain end. Not that one, but the second one in from the chain end has got that flange on it. Somebody will be able to tell me why in a minute, but yeah, interesting. So there we are. All the pistons are now flopped out the bottom. Don't worry, I don't think we'll be using them again, but it was just interesting to see how these things come apart. The actual cylinder bars seem to look quite good. We'll flip it over in a minute and have another look, but you know, everything looks fine in there. So the other thing that I'm noting is you'll see that this engine runs with 2 balancer shafts, one of which I've managed to remove, one of which I snapped the the tab off when I was trying to pull that out, and just as a bit of a 5-minute play about the other day. But if we do a proper rebuild of one of these engines, then we can actually delete these, and one of the aspects of deleting these is that there is something to tap in 7mm to block up the oil galleries, and I think, so someone can tell me if I'm right or wrong, that it's that thing. There's like a silver ring in there with a hole in it. Can't see it by camera very well, but there's like a silver ring with a hole in it which I think feeds the bearing of the balancer shaft, and to stop that activating or being used when you delete those shafts, you've got to tap it in a certain amount. So at least I can have a practice at doing that on a scrap engine. So yeah, as a bit of a diagnosis, the crank bearings had metal in them, which has caused some wear, and whether or not the crank is now scrap, don't know. We can try and measure that in another episode maybe. The pistons seem okay. The piston rings don't have any marks on them. We'll have a closer look, but you know, there's no seemingly, other than that, where it's been resting on the floor just now, bit of dirt, but there's no major warning signs as far as I can see along those piston rings. We've got the carbon buildup on top as usual, and the bearing play or whatever that is in the end, the piston rod connector. They all slide side to side. I'm guessing that's normal. But yeah, so no major warning signs from those or the cylinder bores as far as I can see with my basic eyes. So yeah, my advice is, if your engine runs chains, is to keep on top of those chains, and any signs of issues with them, oh dear, having a bit of a nightmare flipping this around. I'm going to have it this time. Should really do it with both hands, I think. There we go. So yeah, look after your chains, look after your engine. But yeah, those cylinder liners, bores, don't seem too bad, other than they've been sat for a while, so they've got a bit of surface rust on them. Yeah, interesting stuff really. Having a look around, see what's what. Just so I know for the future really. Right. Obviously, we'll be back with any news on the car. If I find any more interesting bits and bobs to talk about, we shall do that. Otherwise, we'll just sat around waiting, really, for it to come back. And I'll talk about some other news in the next episode. In a couple of days, I'm going to do an episode about the long-term future, what's going to be happening. So stick around for that. And yeah, thanks for watching this. Just a little bit of an info video. Not a lot going on, but hey, I'm doing what I can. So thank you for watching. Like if you can and all that business. And it's good to see the channel. I don't really like to call things a channel, but we've got more subscribers, nearly 150. Woohoo! So yeah, by all means, invite your friends to come along for the journey. And thanks for all of those that you're following along, it's much appreciated. Anyway, I'll stop waffling. Thank you for watching, stay safe.